Okay, guys, so today I want to talk about how to handle rude people. So, if you've ever worked a retail position, which I think we've all had to work a retail position at some point, you've encountered someone rude. It's almost a part of the job description. I'm very surprised that at this point, you know, they don't actually just put, as a part of your qualifications, do you know how to deal with rude people? Do you have a track record in dealing with rude people? Because I feel like that should actually be a part of applying for a retail job because it's so important. It is so important, guys. People really underestimate how important learning how to deal with rude people is when it comes to any type of position when you have to deal with another person. Man, woman, child, teenager, doesn't matter, or I guess non-binary. I think that's a new qualification or category now. Whatever that may be, um, someone's going to be rude to you on the job. It's going to happen, and sometimes it could be more than one person or persons. Um, Multiple people, a group, a gang, a motley crew, if you will, who all just come in, for whatever reason, because they know that because you're wearing a name tag, you kind of have to deal with their behavior. They're just going to just be mean to you. And that's it. They're just there to be cruel to someone who either can't fight back or, is incapable of fighting back. When I say can't fight back, I mean they can't fight back because they don't want to lose their job. And then when I say incapable of fighting back, I'm talking about someone with very low self-esteem who just, it's not just people at their job who's cruel to them. It's just like everyone is because they don't know how to stand up for themselves. They have very low self-esteem. So they're walking in the middle of the street or, going to school or going home. Everyone's being cruel to them. Everyone's beating them down. And they just learned to basically just play dead and just, stare at the floor and just take the abuse. So regardless of who you are, you're going to encounter rudeness, and this is going to be magnified by people who are considered to be unattractive or low status in the hierarchy of society. The lower you are on the totem pole, the lower you are on the hierarchy, the more rude people are going to be to you. Now you'll notice that very rarely will someone like Mike Tyson encounter rudeness because of his reputation for violence and also his celebrity status. He's not as famous as he once was, but he's still a celebrity, in my opinion. He's definitely still a celebrity. He definitely still has a core fan base. But even if he was like, dirt poor, he's still Mike Tyson. He was once called the scariest man on earth. So just that reputation and his skill in combat acts as a natural deterrent. 99% of people are not going to mess with him. He rudeness is not something that he has to deal with for the most part. And again, there's an exception for everyone. Usually sometimes when people have they feel like they have an advantage in a situation with him, they'll take the opportunity. But again, we're going to get into that video another time. As opposed to like, Steve, from accounting, someone like that, who's, um, you know, doesn't have high self-esteem, probably doesn't take care of himself, probably doesn't respect himself in terms of his attire or his behaviors or his body posture or whatever. Someone like that, is just a target for bullying, and he'll encounter a lot more rudeness than Chad, who's like also an accounting. I don't want to like say that he's like, the CEO because that's a bit too easy. Chad from accounting, and he is, much more respectful in terms of his attire. He works out all the time. He has a large friend group. He has a reputation of, being this amazing person. And, you know, if he encounters rudeness, it's very, very, very rare. And it's usually like a sort of playful rudeness, like usually a woman trying, or a woman or a man trying to kid around with him, as opposed to being noticeably cruel or purposefully cruel. So In some way, shape, or form, we're all going to encounter rudeness. But again, some people encounter more rudeness than others. So how do you handle it? The first thing you really have to do when dealing with rudeness is to understand that you can't control other people. I talk about this control in a lot of my videos, but it's important because some people just don't get that. They don't get that you can't control other people. You can only control yourself. So that's the most important thing right there. Some people are just very, 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 very disrespectful. However, there are certain things you can do to reduce the amount of rudeness that you encounter. And one of the first things is to respect yourself. No one's going to respect you if you don't respect yourself. You have to respect yourself. I know that you've encountered things in your life that have probably made you feel, low and worthless. And this usually comes out on how you treat yourself. You don't work out. You don't take care of yourself. I'm not even going to go into the working out because obviously everyone knows that. I'm talking about even a man who doesn't work out, but respects the way he dresses, respects the way he talks and his body posture. Someone out of shape who has all these good qualities, as opposed to someone who's in shape, who looks down on the ground and talks and whisper, doesn't have any confidence when he speaks, you know, doesn't know how to stand up for himself. The out of shape person who has the good qualities is going to definitely encounter less rudeness than the in shape person who doesn't believe in himself. And it's truly a sight to see that, but it does happen. So you have to respect yourself, guys. Respecting yourself is so important, not just for encountering rudeness or dealing with rudeness, but just for your mental health. When you, I'm not 100% sure about the psychological studies, but I've definitely seen how someone who takes the time to respect themselves, they just glow. They really just glow. It's like there's an aura around them, and you just can't help but respect them. You just can't help it. Another thing you can really do to handle rudeness is to address it. Address it. Not in a crybaby way, because some people the way they respond to rudeness is it's a fight fire with fire. So someone yells at you, you yell back at them. Someone gets aggressive with you, get aggressive with them. And again, I can understand this, and sometimes that does work. Fighting fire with fire sometimes does work, but it also shows a level of emotional insecurity, and it really gives the person being rude or the bully what they want. They want to get a reaction out of you. So again, if you feel like this is the only way for you to prevent rudeness, again, I'm not your father. You can do that if you want. But in my personal opinion, the best way to address rudeness is to address it in the most direct and non BS way possible. Like to straight up look the person in the eye and let them know, hey, I understand you might be having a bad day. I understand you're going through something right now. I understand you may be feeling a little low. You might be feeling like you're not good enough. And I get all that. Everybody feels that way at some point. But you're being very disrespectful. You're being very, very disrespectful. And put some bass in your voice when you say this. Don't yell at them, but definitely make sure people can hear what you're saying. Don't whisper. Don't mumble it. Put some bass in your voice when you say it. And I understand you're going through something, but you're being, I got to choose my words here carefully because I want to get this video demonetized, but you're being absurdly disrespectful. You're being absurdly disrespectful. And quite frankly, you're embarrassing yourself right now by behaving this way. You're not going to make yourself feel better by disrespecting me. What you need to do is go get some help, because everyone around you who's dealing with this behavior from you, they're quite frankly laughing at you when you're not around, because only a loser acts like this. And again, you don't have to say this verbatim. Don't take this the transcript from this video and say this to someone. You don't have to do that, guys. I'm just saying you have to be, I don't want to say man enough, because it could be a woman watching this too. You have to have the courage to just address the rudeness. And it's very important to do this, guys, because if you do this, guys, if you address the rudeness, you'd be very surprised how quickly bullies back off. Because most bullies are cowards. And when a coward gets addressed that way, they almost immediately shrivel up and back off because they want to mess with someone who's not willing to stand up for themselves. That's quite frankly what they really want to do. They really, really want to mess with someone who's not going to fight back. So just by doing that, I'm telling you guys, I've seen it happen. I've seen a pipsqueak, or excuse me, I've seen someone small, insignificant. You would never look twice at them when you're walking down the street. Make a giant, someone, as tall as a basketball player, if not taller, shrivel up and cower in the corner simply because they addressed what that bully was doing. And I've seen it, and it is probably one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. Like a real David and Goliath situation. But again, as big as that bully was, he's still a bully. And as I said, bullies are cowards. And when someone stands up to a coward, the coward's going to back off. And guys, you got to have the courage to just address that behavior. I understand you don't like confrontation, but you have to address it. And rudeness will only go on as long as you allow it. So keep that in mind, guys. And again, obviously, self-defense, learning how to fight, etc. All that helps. But honestly, guys, all that is just a bonus. What you really need to do is respect yourself, learn to respect yourself, and address the behavior. Even if you have to report it. People are going to call you a snitch or whatever. Most bullies will usually mess with someone who's not willing to do anything about the bullying. That's why it goes on for years and years and no one knows about it, because the target isn't willing to say anything about it. But yeah, guys, respect yourself, address the bullying. So important, guys. That's how you handle rudeness. And again, I might make a follow-up video to this one. I want to really thank you guys all for watching. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think. I've been on Act Clear. You guys have been amazing. Take care, guys.